So, I've fallen out of love with Genshin Impact. Yeah, shocker, such a hot take, I know, but I thought that with my frustrations with the game and its many controversies, I could take that frustration and try to redesign some Genshin characters. Of course, since I'm a lazy artist, I only redesigned one character, which is Paimon. Now, I'm going to be very honest, I was actually planning on creating a series where I would focus on redesigning every Genshin character, and I would create the series based on each region. But of course, my ambition versus the reality is very different, so that obviously did not happen. However, I can still share the progress that I did made, and I will also add a disclaimer that I am not trying to fix anything. I'm not fixing Genshin. I am just doing this for fun. And with that said, let's get into the video. Fair warning, this video is not scripted at all. I am just going to start with no script and see where I can go from here, since this is my first YouTube video. Now, I'm sure some may be wondering, out of all the Genshin characters that I could redesign with mountains of possibilities for controversy, why did I choose Paimon? So, the answer to that is, like I said, initially I wanted to make a whole series about redesigning Genshin, but the twist was it was not going to be based on the story's lore, but based on my own headcanons and just my interpretation of the world if it were more simplified. But like I said, it was a really big project and it was not realistic and ideal for me, especially since it involved a lot of research, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not willing to put that much effort into a project just for fun. That is why I actually started with Paimon. She is the first character you meet in the game, so it only made sense to me. And as you can see here, I have the first draft of my concept, quote-unquote, design for her. There isn't a lot of differences. I just added wings because I knew for sure I wanted her to be a fairy, and I changed her romper into a nightgown because I'm going to be very truthful and admit that I don't like Paimon's little romper thing. It's just me, where I just don't like how Genshin tends to put a lot of the little girl characters into very revealing clothing. So I'm changing that. I changed it to a little nightgown instead because I thought it was cuter and a little safer. And other than that, I didn't make too many changes just because Paimon's design is already iconic. There's a lot of symbolism into her design. I believe that the crescent moon cape was supposed to be alluding towards the three moon sisters, which admittedly I haven't done a lot of research about, and apparently the lore is being revealed in the game currently, but I am not going back to the dark side, so it is what it is. But I will admit that this initial concept wasn't the best. It was just me kind of testing out ideas, and then as you can see now, I am starting to try different poses. I am making a close-up of her face to see what I could change and what I could interpret into my style. And as I'm playing around with ideas, I actually took a break from this at this point of the speed paint, where I had to really think about what I wanted to go into her design. Now, like I said, Paimon's design is actually supposed to be symbolic of like the three moon sisters or a lot of other things into that. Like, there's a theory that I found upon when I was like researching for her, where apparently her design might be alluding towards the primordial one, which if you don't read Genshin lore like I do, then I will summarize it for you with the research that I have came up with. So essentially, the primordial one is the first descender of Tevat, and they basically create the four shades, which are these godlike beings. This is where my knowledge of the story gets kind of fuzzy, but something Celestia is created and they defeat the dragons. Sorry, I probably did not get that lore right, but based on my knowledge, the primordial one in the form of the four shades defeats these dragons, which are supposed to represent the elements of Genshin, and those elements get turned into the, what are those things called? Those little chess pieces. It's not, man, I forgot. I have not played Genshin in a while. Sorry. I will probably edit in what it's actually called, but yeah, so actually I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but yeah, basically that's how the archons were made or such. So apparently, based on a lot of the ruins of Celestia and how much of those ruins match the parts of Paimon's design, that was supposed to be a hint, apparently, towards her being the primordial one. But, like, again, this was just, like, a theory I found that I wanted to incorporate into her design initially. But then I started freaking out, and I tried doing a bunch of different stuff because she wasn't looking the way I wanted to. Because, as you can see, she looks a lot like a moth in this first design. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go for a whimsical fairy that was like very childish and very dreamy like I don't know how to describe this, but a lot like one of those, you know, those characters from Sanrio, those twins, how they have, the little girl has like a little nightgown. I really wanted that for Paimon, for her to have like a really sleepy and dreamy feel, and I feel like that kind of fits her character since she's like lazy, but I still wanted her to be very lively and playful like an actual fairy. So yeah, you can see me playing with that idea as I'm adding like a bunch of different pastel colors, and I'm not gonna lie, I was just kind of adding them to make them work, but it wasn't really working, so I scrapped that and I started to try to aim for a more holier design. Sorry, I had someone say in the comments that they thought that this design looked like Lord Baby Jesus redesign, and I thought that was hilarious, so I ended up going with this design. At this point, I created a vague version of my rewrite, so I don't know if I should reveal that now or in a future video because I did scrap the idea, but maybe if this video gets enough likes and attention, maybe I can dive deeper into this project again. But note that it won't be too serious, it's just going to be very rambly and me going on about different ideas. As you can see at this segment, I started to make her have like these little droplets on her face because I decided I wanted her to be much like a candle, like a little candle fairy. This one, I thought it was cute, but two, it actually has a lot to do with some symbolic things I wanted for my Genshin rewrite. So a core thing I forgot to mention was that for her design, I made the base Puck from Berserk. Now there are, even though Berserk is a very popular franchise, I know that there is probably some people that haven't watched it or read the manga with Puck in it. So to be brief, Puck is this little fairy that follows Guts around in the story. In the world of Berserk, it's very dark, so Guts has went through a lot of trauma. He has been through hardships as a child where he is forced to fend for himself. He joins the Band of the Hawk or the Falcon. I got the translation where it said Band of the Hawks, but he joins a band of knights and becomes best friends with the captain. And later on in the story, he is betrayed by the captain in a very graphic way that I will not describe because this is YouTube. But he is betrayed, and after that traumatic event, he wanders the world alone and has a even more grim view of the world. And Puck comes into the story to basically help lighten Guts' view of the world. Admittedly, it isn't done from the get. Puck has to work a little hard to gain Guts' trust, but I feel like the core idea of Puck's character of being that supporting role that helps uplift the character, the main character I mean, and also becomes, in a sense, the light to this very grim and gritty character's worldview, was such a great inspiration for Paimon. In the original game of Genshin, Paimon tends to have a lot of controversies surrounding her. She is known to be noisy, lazy, and not necessarily in a cute, endearing way most of the time. She can come off as pretty tone deaf, and most times in the dialogue, she summarizes a lot of what characters just say, just to dumb things down for the viewer, and a lot of people tend to find that insulting, just because it feels like the game doesn't trust the audience's intelligence to process the story. Me in particular, I don't really care because I honestly skip the dialogue, because you cannot expect me to read the same few paragraphs of characters basically saying the same thing but with different words. But yeah, that's criticism for another time. But yeah, I feel like a lot of Paimon's issues stem from the fact that her negative traits aren't really portrayed as negative. They're more viewed as comedic, and you know, it's fine to do that. I just feel like if you make that the gag all the time, then it gets boring. And with Puck, why I personally find Puck more funny compared to Paimon is that Puck still has very vulnerable moments with Guts, and he is shown to still be a very important part of the story of Berserk. Not to say that Paimon doesn't have her moments with the Traveler, it's just I feel like the game doesn't highlight it as well, especially during the beginning of the story. Maybe here and there if you go into the Traveler's dialogue where they communicate with Paimon, but I wouldn't really count that because it's not officially shown to us in the main storyline. I feel like if the audience has to look through supplemental material or do their homework to understand a character, then I feel like that isn't very good writing. That's just my personal take. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but that's essentially how I feel about Genshin as a whole. So yeah, I wanted to take the things that I liked about Puck, but not only insert that onto Paimon, but still make Paimon uniquely herself. The issue isn't that she's a gag character. I think the issue is that the game will only let her be a gag character. So whenever she does have serious moments, it doesn't necessarily fall flat, but it feels like we need more of these moments compared to her very tone-deaf and ignorant moments. Like, show the players more positive attributes about Paimon than just her negative ones. So I wouldn't say there's too much differences from the original Paimon and my Paimon. Just the fact that I feel like since she is supposed to be the tour guide of Teyvat for the Traveler specifically, she should be more optimistic and very motivational to the Traveler. Oh, which I forgot to mention, since Puck is supposed to be the light to Guts, in my rewrite I wanted the Traveler to be a lot more gritty. Well, maybe gritty is not the word, but a little melancholic, just because I feel like me personally, if I were put into another world where I am separated from my sibling, and I have to venture through a world that I am unfamiliar with and probably don't even know the language of alone, even especially as like an introvert or someone that's very like shy. I think that I would struggle a lot mentally, and I think that Paimon would be a very good emotional support for the traveler. But yeah, I wouldn't want to make too many changes to her character. I would just want to add more balance. So she's still the lovable, goofy Paimon. She just has more positive traits where she wants to genuinely look out for the traveler and not just mooch off of them. Now, on to how I would do the game mechanics. To be clear, I'm not a game developer, obviously. I am just an amateur artist that does redesigns or general designs just for fun. I love character design, but I'm not a professional character designer. So, yeah, again, I'm not a game dev, but if I were to change things about how Paimon worked in the game, I would, for one, make it to where she can be your floating companion throughout the game, which I also forgot to mention. I made little sprites. So there is a solution to the issue of Paimon's character model being too big for the player to really focus on the traveler's surroundings, because I've seen a lot of people wanting Paimon to be a little companion for the traveler as they play in game, for her to basically like float around. But I noticed that her model is really big and very distracting, so I can understand why the devs decided to not make her an option as a pet thing. So my solution to this was basically create a new model, but it is very simplified and more chibi, so not only can it not be distracting when you are playing in game, but also it'll create more unique expressions for Paimon to make whenever she's in her little comedic scenes. And when it comes to serious scenes, this is when she actually utilizes her serious model. Story-wise, I think this is just like a comedy thing, but game-wise, it's just for the sake of making her more available as like your little companion. And I also want to make more functions with her. So, for example, the traveler does have a little inventory pouch, but I thought it would be nice if Paimon carried a pouch for you. Like, since Genshin is already like a magical world, maybe Paimon can have this infinite dimension pouch where the traveler can pretty much insert anything. So yeah, I also want her, like as I said before, I want her to be more emotionally available to the traveler. Maybe the traveler doesn't reveal every little secret to Paimon, and I think that's fine, but Paimon also doesn't really reveal much of herself throughout the game, and I feel like it could be a really important bonding moment for them to slowly open up to each other and slowly trust each other, which is like, you know, small character development. Yay! So, yeah, she doesn't have anything huge if I were to incorporate her game-wise, but I'd say that it is a little more than what the game currently gives us. I understand that the game wants Paimon to just be like a mascot, but I feel like she could be a little more than that. I feel like she's very essential to the traveler. Whenever the traveler is being promoted, Paimon is usually with the traveler, and it would be nice if she were treated with more respect than what the game does with her. But yeah, sorry, this video is again very unscripted. I was just really rambly, but I really wanted to get this video out. I've been holding back and hesitating because I'm just so honestly insecure about how my ideas would come off, especially since I kind of have trouble speaking, especially to the camera, because I'm a little camera shy. But you know what, it's good to try new things, and I really am a little passionate about character redesigns. I just need to feel a little more confident about sharing my ideas. But yeah, again, sorry, this is like a very rough start, but again, this is my first YouTube video. If you have any feedback for me in the comments, definitely open to hearing criticisms for my design and also this video. And I would love to also hear your opinions about Genshin and your opinions about my redesign, of course, or general opinions about Paimon. I know there's a lot of controversy regarding her original voice actor, but I felt like it wasn't important to this video because it's about Paimon's character, not the person behind her. And besides, by this point, I think she already got replaced. I don't know, I haven't played the game in a long time. I just heard news from TikTok and such. But yeah, like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, or you want to see me improve or make more designs. I don't just do Genshin content, I do actually draw more stuff than just Genshin. So if you have other video ideas, I'm open to that too. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!